foundational principles. This is America's Voice Now.
Find America's Voice Now on Facebook and at americasvoicenow.org. Here's Michael Evans.
Good morning, America. My name is Michael Evans, and you're listening to America's Voice Now. You know, today is a day that we celebrate and memorialize our soldiers, our military, our fallen heroes. And it's a day that I think, you know, many Americans consider it the beginning of summer. But I think they've forgotten the real true value or meaning of this day. I know you'll hear about it on the news. You'll see it in different events. You'll see sales and circulars and flyers. But what you won't see is a remembrance of all those people that have come before us and put their lives and their fortunes and their sacred honor on the plate. These are the men and the women who took up arms in an effort to protect you and give you that which you, quite honestly, don't even realize that you have. It's interesting because we benefit from it every day. Our nation celebrates it, and yet they don't really understand the meaning or the true value of that celebration. I want to just take a few minutes this morning, and we're not going to talk about news. We're not going to talk about politics. I want you to just spend a little bit of time this morning thinking back in your heart and in your mind to what the real true value is that these men and women have laid down their lives and put their health and their safety and their welfare on the line for. There's a poem that was written by, and I'll be honest with you, I'm really not even sure how to pronounce his name. But it's pretty explanatory. It's called "A Visitor from the Past." And it's a poem that was written as a patriotic poem, and it was distributed, back in the 80s and the 90s. It's called "A Visitor from the Past." I had a dream the other night I didn't understand. A figure walking through the mist with a flintlock in his hand. His clothes were torn and dirty as he stood there by my bed. He took off his three-cornered hat and, speaking low, he said, "We fought a revolution to secure our liberty. We wrote the Constitution as a shield from tyranny. For future generations, this legacy we gave, in this the land of the free and the home of the brave. The freedoms we secured for you, we hoped you'd always keep. But tyrants labored endlessly while your parents slept. Your freedom gone, your courage lost. You're no more than a slave. In this the land of the free and the home of the brave. You buy permits to travel and permits to own a gun, permits to start a business or build a place for one. On land you believe you own, you pay a yearly rent, although you have no voice in how the money is spent. Your children must attend a school that doesn't educate. Your Christian values can't be taught, according to the state. You read about the current news in a regulated press. You pay taxes that you do not owe to please the IRS. Your money is no longer made of silver or of gold. You trade your wealth for paper, so your life can be controlled. You pay for crimes that make our nation turn from God in shame. You've taken Satan's number as you traded in your name. You've given government control of those who do you harm, so they can padlock churches and steal the family farm, and keep our country deep in debt, put men of God in jail, harass your fellow countrymen while corrupted courts prevail. Your public servants don't uphold the solemn oath they've sworn. Your daughters visit doctors so their children won't be born. Your leaders ship artillery and guns to foreign shores and send your sons to slaughter, fighting other people's wars. Can you regain the freedom for which we fought and died? Or don't you have the courage or the faith to stand with pride? Are there no more values for which you'll fight to save? Or do you wish your children to live in fear and be a slave? People of the Republic, arise and take a stand. Defend this Constitution, the supreme law of the land. Preserve our great Republic and God-given right, and pray to God to keep the torch of freedom burning bright. As I awoke, he vanished in the mist from whence he came. His words were true. We are not free. We have ourselves to blame. For even now, as tyrants, trample each God-given right. We only watch and tremble, too afraid to stand and fight. If he stands by your bedside in a dream while you sleep, and wonders what remains of our rights he fought to keep, what would be your answer if he called out from the grave? Is this still the land of the free and the home of the brave? We're going to take a break. Encourage you to put those thoughts to something other than just a quick whistle. Where do you stand? Where do you stand in this crisis? We'll be back in just a moment.
Hi, I'm Scott Corman, President of Community First. We want to be your bank. We believe in the strength of our communities, businesses, families, and future. We're not just locally owned, but community owned. And we operate today just as we started, by living up to our name, putting you and our communities first.
Living up to our name, community first, banking company.
Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender.
Hi, it's Hugh Hewitt on the next Hugh Hewitt Show. The next governor of Virginia, Ken Cuccinelli. The current senator from South Dakota, John Thune. I'll also be joined by Bill Kristol, and we'll talk with all of them about immigration reform and what is ahead in the United States Senate, and Marco Rubio. Don't miss any minute of the next Hugh Hewitt Show.
Sundays from 6 till 7, following Money Talk with Bob Brinker, it's the Weekend Journal with Hugh Hewitt on the Ozarks Best News Talk 107.1.
You know, part of Memorial Day is encapsulated in the word memorial. We forget to remember the real purpose of the day. I think one thing that America has a system of neglect for is not only just our sons who go to battle and fight in wars, but also our women. You know, many of them fight right alongside our men. And I think in a lot of cases we neglect them when we think of our fighting men. You know, traditionally war is a man's game, but you know, for every soldier out front, there's 10 people in the back. And for every soldier out there, there are women who are, in some cases, in the front lines, and in some cases, many of them in the back, who are making his fight capable. There's a poem out there called Invisible Soldier, and I think it kind of appropriately captures that sentiment. It's called Invisible Soldier. You can tell her by the twinkle in her eye at parades when the flag marches by. She served our country, and she served it very well. Some have even served a tour or two in hell. She suffered hardship and never ceased to care. It gave us strength just to know that she was there. She was a leader. You could tell by the rank she wore. But she became the invisible soldier after the war. Now it's finally time to right a wrong. Honor our sister soldier. Hear her song. It's very clear that she's a patriot to the core. Let's not let her be the invisible soldier anymore. Excuse me. You know, our guys and our girls are over there in foreign lands, and they put up with hardships, and they put up with doubt and fear. You know, I think many of them oftentimes wonder, what am I actually doing here? I mean, what's the point of all this, right? And meanwhile, you know, the old adage goes that old men start wars and young men fight them. But I think the vast majority of them, while they may not necessarily agree with the purposes of why we're there, the underlying principles of freedom and liberty are what they are actually fighting for. You know, it's the soldier, not the reporter, who gives us freedom of the press. It's a soldier, not a poem or a poet, that gives us freedom of speech. It's a soldier, not a campus organizer, who gives us the freedom to demonstrate and protest. It's a soldier who serves beneath the flag and who salutes it. It's a soldier whose coffin is draped by that flag. And he's the selfsame soldier who allowed the protester to burn it. It's the soldier, not the politician, who gives his blood, his body, and his life. It's the soldier who gives us our freedoms. And we should remember the value that they've delivered to you at the cost of their own lives. Many times not their lives, but wounds that are indelible, that are deep, physically, emotionally. There are wounds that people will bear forever. My dad fought in World War II. You know, the average age of a soldier in World War II is about 24 years old. They were young men but they were men nonetheless. The average age of a soldier today is about 19. And, you know, I dare say that that space of 4 or 5 years can make a vast difference in the thinking of a young man, in how he perceives and compartmentalizes his thinking. You know, I think a lot of these young fellas that join up today, and young girls, they understand the underlying concepts. But the idea of you know, coming into full adulthood in your 20s or in your early 20s puts a different light on things. You know, youth is traditionally very idealistic. And when you hit into your 20s and you've felt some of the world's bruises and bumps, you realize that not everything that you thought you knew. Not everything you thought you understood, you really understood. That things aren't always the way that they seem or always the way they should be. And I think there are more soldiers today that are coming back with wounds that are indelible inside of them than are physically, you know, lost a limb or had some physical damage. The number of our soldiers today that are unfortunately committing suicide in utter and black despair is a national shame. It's a tragedy. We have 22 young men and women a day that are taking their lives. 22. And they're doing it because they have lost hope and faith. They're in despair in a deep and black way that we don't comprehend. And we've forgotten our commitment and our obligation to them. We've forgotten that they should be our first and foremost obligation and duty to take care of, mentally and physically. We've forgotten that when they come home, they have no skills but men of war, and they can't go get a job at a Home Depot or some office. They've gone over there and learned to kill. And that's not a skill our society values. We use them up and then throw them out there on the street with no support, no help. Pump them full of all kinds of garbage and drugs that rewire their brains in this misguided effort to try to correct their way of thinking. Their way of thinking is what we gave them, what we taught them, what we made them believe. And then we shatter all of those illusions and just toss them out there and say, now stop thinking that way. Stop acting that way. We saw this at the end of Vietnam. We saw it at the end of World War II. We saw it at the end of Korea. Now we see it at the end of Iraq. Now we see it at the end of Afghanistan. But today, that level of despair is exacerbated because they come back here and they see that everything that they believed in, everything they fought for, is really not there. They see that dirty underbelly. They see the fallacy and the irony that we are pitching something over in foreign nations that we don't even believe in ourselves, that we've abandoned, that we've given up. They see an American people that don't care. Half don't care, and the other half are just in there for what's in it for them. And their hearts are eternally hurt, wounded in a way that is far worse than any physical wound they could have gained. And they take their lives over it. I don't know how to fix it. I don't know that there is a fix for it. The wounds of war. Some wounds of war are never seen. They're buried deep within. No open wound, no purple heart, no blemish on the skin. But these are wounds that leave a scar upon our very soul. They tear our hearts, cause misery, and take a heavy toll. Our bloodless wounds cause us to ask, "Oh God, what was it for?" We go through life not knowing why we have these wounds of war. I think it's incumbent on each and one of us to find a veteran who is experiencing difficulty moving back into society, and somehow or other make a difference in his or her life. Find a vet and invite them over to your home for dinner one night. Make them a part of your family. Even if they have a family, make them a part of yours. And let them know that they're cared about and respected. And that what they fought for was actually worth the price they've paid. Because if we don't do that, then we have failed to honor them in a way in which they deserve.
Fox News Radio, I'm Salchi Ingrasso. A day of picnics and other family gatherings is also the day to remember fallen military service members.
After hosting families who lost loved ones in combat for breakfast at the White House, President Obama will lay a wreath at the Tomb of the Unknowns at Arlington National Cemetery, just one of several remembrances here in D.C.
Fox Radio's Jared Halpern. How about some skiing this Memorial Day? A weekend storm dropped 3 feet of snow on a New York ski mountain near the Vermont border. The weather got so bad there this weekend that the highway on the backside of the mountain had to be closed. New York's long-awaited bicycle sharing program begins today.
Folks who pay the fee to join the city's new bike share program get to just grab a bike from one of the kiosks all over town. You can ride around for a while, then leave it at any other kiosk. Most New Yorkers seem to like the idea.
Fox Radio's Hank Weinblum. Fox News, we report, you decide.
I'd like to thank our sponsor, Wits End Classic Barbershop, who is the sponsor of our telephone lines this morning. They're located on the square in West Plains. It's Wits End Classic Barbershop. Thanks to our friends over at West Plains Pawn and Gun. You can find them on the web at westplainspawn.com. They can be reached at 417-256-3000, and they're located on Route 160, about a mile past Walmart on the right-hand side. 400 guns undercover. Pizza Hut, our friends down there on Porter Wagoner Boulevard. They have an outstanding lunch menu with salad, pizza, and pasta. Excellent opportunity for you to have a great lunch and eat well and something tasty. Our friends over at the Battery Station at 303 Washington Avenue. You can find them on the web at batterystation.com. Telephone 417-257-7799. Our friends over at Ozark Mountain Self-Reliance can be found on the web at ozarkmtnselfreliance.com. My friend Brian there can be reached at 870-492-4030. They're located a half mile east of Walmart at 3225 Route 62, Mountain Home. My friend Mary over at Chantilly's Artisan Bakery, the best damn bakery in 100 miles. She's right off the square in West Plains at 2 Evans Arcade, and you can reach her at 255-2253. And my friend Bill Stone over at Stone Construction. If you're considering doing remodeling, custom or new construction, or anything like commercial, give Bill a call and have him bid on your project at 293-0116.
The Battery Station in West Plains is your headquarters for getting and being prepared. Natural disasters, civil unrest, personal and family protection, long-term sustenance, and most importantly, peace of mind. Berkey bottles and home-sized water purification systems, survival food, MREs, freeze-dried food, survival knives, lanterns, ammunition, military sleep system, and of course, batteries of all shapes and sizes. Take charge of your own survival and security. The Battery Station, 303 Washington in West Plains, 417-257-7799 or batterystation.com.
Weather sponsorships are now available on News Talk 107.1 The Point. Get more information, email info@diamondmediaradio.com for complete details.
From the Point Weather Center for this morning, with a partly cloudy sky, partly sunny and breezy through this Memorial Day. There could be a stray shower or thunderstorm, particularly early on. The high temperature 82. It'll be partly cloudy tonight, low 64. Sunshine tomorrow, high 84. Sunny Wednesday. I'm staff meteorologist Jim Rinaldi, and for more information, visit my1071thepoint.com.
If you're looking for great deals on iPads or Kindles, look no further than your neighborhood Radio Shack authorized sales center. They've got great deals on the latest iPads and Kindles. Maybe you need a new GPS or an MP3 player to get your music library ready for those barbecues. Whatever your electronic needs, stop by your local neighborhood Radio Shack authorized dealer in West Plains at 1408 Southern Hills Shopping Center or call 417-256-1819.
How many of those of you who are listening now have a father who served our nation? You know, many of us had our fathers who served in World War II. They were known as the greatest generation. My dad fought in World War II. He was in Guadalcanal. Okinawa. He never talked much about the war. He always kind of kept it to himself. And that was a mark of our fathers. They suffered in silence for what they saw and what they felt and in what it did to them. Mark my words, the wounds that were left on them were in many places indelible, never to be healed. You know, that old adage that time heals all wounds is not true. Time doesn't heal all wounds. There's always a vestige of the damage done. You know, a few times I could get him to talk about it. You know, 5 boys, we were curious as all get out. You know, boys want to know about their dad. And they want to know what it's like. And even when we were adults, he didn't really want to talk about it. You know, he had some souvenirs. He'd come home with a wallet full of money from the Japanese, and he had a few things here and there that he'd brought back with him. But, you know, I never realized until I'd reached adulthood what the value of his sacrifice was. And I know that he saw and lived through a very, very terrible, terrible time. You know, the fighting that went on in the Pacific was extraordinarily harsh. And it wasn't until I became an adult that, and with the ability to think critically and understand what he must have gone through. And he was always very, very, he was a strong believer in what this country meant. And what our duties and our obligations were as a part of it. I saw a poem the other day that kind of struck me about it. I was looking around for some things to talk about today and some poems to read. And I don't normally read a lot of poetry, but there are some instances where poetry expresses that which we can't say any other way. And so if you'll forbear with me today and live with my sentimentalism, I'm going to read a couple of them that I think are invaluable in expressing what we need to remember and what we need to put to remembrance. This one's called Soldier. I saw a burial with a bugler playing taps. I turned to my father. "What happened?" I asked. He clutched my hand, and with a quiver in his voice, he began to explain, and his eyes became moist. "My son," he said, "this is rather difficult for me. For an old veteran like myself, this is tough to see. In that coffin lies a genuine patriotic warrior, an honest-to-God hero, an American soldier. I appreciate that soldier and the service he gave, and I honor his sacrifice as he's laid in his grave. He was honorable, selfless, courageous, and bold. Please remember him, son, as you grow old. The value of his service I must explain. If not remembered, it will be lost in vain. As a nation, we're nothing without soldiers like him, and failing to remember would be a terrible sin." I listened in awe as my father spoke. It seemed as if his heart were broke. I suddenly remembered when he went to war, and when he returned, I thought nothing more. I never asked why he walked with a limp, and I didn't care about why he was sick. I was too busy enjoying the life that I had to realize that I had it because of my dad. I finally understood what my dad was about. And it hurt so bad, I cried out loud. He sacrificed so much so I could be free, and his battle scars were suffered for me. It was my father's spirit that spoke to me that day. Thank God I finally understood what he had to say. I saluted his coffin as they laid him to rest, and I thought about the medals pinned on his chest. That I didn't honor him sooner, I will always regret. And I pledge that day to never again forget. I'm proud that my dad was a patriotic warrior. I'm honored to be the son of an American soldier. You know, I'm probably just as guilty as anyone in not realizing who provided for me this life that I have. You know, our lives get busy and we're self-absorbed. We neglect to remember who and why. Who fought for us? Who put their time and their lives on the line? I didn't serve our military, and I didn't serve our nation. You know, when I was younger, I was foolish and self-absorbed. And to this day, I regret that I didn't take up the mantle, the torch of freedom that I should have done. I should have lived that obligation. And yet, there are ways that each of us, whether veteran or not, can still serve our nation. It's in danger again. Again, we need men of courage, men of conviction, men of strength. And women. Women of honor and integrity. We need you to stand today. Never again will I allow myself to not live and meet my obligation and my duty. I can't change the past, but I can most assuredly change the future. And that is my course of action. What is yours? Will you stand with me in the breach?
See Branson's most incredible shows at RFD TV, The Theater. Hi, I'm Barry Williams. Come celebrate with the great sounds of the 70s in my brand new $1 million production, 70s Music Celebration. Featuring Branson's best live band, a terrific cast of singers and dancers, and, well, me, Barry Williams. 70s Music Celebration, Branson's hippest new variety show. Also, wake up to toe-tapping traditional country music mornings with Buck Trent. And don't miss the final chance to see Roy Rogers Jr. and the High Riders for an afternoon of classic cowboy and western music. During the summer months, see awesome street tap, powerful rock music, explosive rhythms, and hysterical comedy with a multi-talented cast of Jerk. And of course, Branson's most popular show year after year, The Haygoods. The best shows in Branson are at RFD TV, The Theater. For more information or to order tickets online, go Go to rfdtvthetheater.com.
Does this sound familiar? You or a loved one have been discharged from the hospital only to face the high costs of in-home care. Recent government statistics indicate that these costs can mount up to $30,000 or more per year, and that over 50% of us can expect to face them at some point of our lives. As a public service, the Center for Sound Consumer Advice has put together a special consumer protection guide loaded with information on some new programs designed to solve this growing challenge. This guide explains a program called Asset-Based Long-Term Insurance that is available through certain major financial institutions. The program lets you reposition the funds you already have. For example, $40,000 could guarantee over $100,000 to pay for in-home care costs. And if you never have to use the funds, the money is there for you now or in the future. The Center for Sound Consumer Advice has your free consumer guide while supplies last. Call 1-800-868-9960. That's 1-800-868-9960.
You know, a while back, I found a young guy who had written a poem and put it up on a website out there. This young kid is pretty courageous. Not for what he says, but because of the way in which he said it. He's posted up on ncrenegade.com. NC like North Carolina. And he posts articles up there pretty frequently. His name is LT. That's what he goes by. And his writing is actually very good. But he wrote this poem that it was a heart-rending writing. And I read it live on the air back in January on the 18th. It was a Friday. So, in light of today and where we stand today, I want to make sure that we are understanding of what our duties and our obligations are going to be as we move forward. I think everyone understands and knows the danger we're in. At least if you listen to this show on a routine basis, you do. And it's important that we gird ourselves and prepare for what we know is going to be a very, very difficult time. If you don't know that, then I suggest that you put some serious thought to it. You know, shut off the electronic noise around you and shut off all of the distractions that are in your life. And spend some time with your family having a discussion about who and what your roles and responsibilities are, what their roles and responsibilities are, and actually make it a discussion. You know, your children are going to live through the coming troubles in America. I don't think anyone is going to sit and deny that we are facing some long-term serious troubles in our nation. And I invite you to, in fact, I'm not going to invite you, I'm asking you to have a serious conversation with yourself. First, to dispel your own fear, and then have a conversation in which you come to grips with where we are and what you're going to do and have to do to take action and be a part of this fight. The fight is one that is on us. It's upon us now. And we don't realize it because, we've still got electricity and we've still got food at the store and we've still got a paycheck coming in. But I'm telling you now that the war is upon us. It's a war that's not being fought right at the moment with guns. But it is a war nonetheless. There's a war on right now for the hearts and the minds of your children, for your own heart and mind. And it's being waged by people and powers that are determined to do you harm. This kid was able to capture that pretty well. It's called I Am a Soldier. I'm sorry, I apologize. It's called A Time to Kill. A Soldier's Lament. I am a soldier. I know what war looks like, what it sounds like, smells like, what it feels like in my soul. I stand today in the twilight of my nation's grace, looking into the darkness of impending war. My sleep is troubled, knowing that what awaits. Yet the ignorant and the true believers sleep easily in their delusions, and I am saddened by it. Daily I see the Black Hawk and Apache helicopters flying over my city. The military vehicles which appear so frequently now on our roads, often with guns up, in violation of posse comitatus. And I know why they prepare, that it is not far off. Nightly, I hear the report of gunfire near my home, the noise angry men make as they prepare to boil over. These are not soldiers. They are but angry men. And though I share their well-justified anger, I am cautious with them, for they are not disciplined, and they know not the face of war, nor the burdens it imposes upon mind, body, and soul. Because of this, they are dangerous, and I am saddened by this, that dangerous men should roam the streets near my home, full of anger and the lust for vengeance. All about me are the ceaseless murmurs of soulless politicians and media propagandists who wear their agendas on their sleeve as a badge of superiority, and the endless echoes of their contrived message assaults me from all sides, even repeated from the mouths of dear friends, and I am saddened by it. I bear witness to the fact that throughout my lifetime, the lifeblood of my republic has been drained away by greedy and self-serving men, from high to low, who contrive naught but deception against their neighbors and countrymen, and who fail to consider that their children and mine shall share the same fate, the same future, and I am saddened by it. But I am a soldier, and I know what must be done, and so I shall put away my sadness, and I shall harness up the bitter steed of war, and gird myself up for the battle, and I shall ride out to meet the enemies of liberty, not in rage, not for anger's sake or the hope of vengeance, but because I swore an oath before God to jealously guard our republic and its constitution against all enemies. Him I shall not disappoint, for he is my hope and my trust. Therefore, as much as my soul laments against the harsh truth before me, I make this declaration to my enemies who press me into this battle, that none shall be able to say afterwards, I did not know, you did not warn me. I do not care why you took that job with the government, or why you continue to hold it. I only know that you have become Judas and sold yourself to an oppressive state. Your government office buildings and vehicles are part of the battlefield, and as a soldier, I shall act accordingly. I do not care why, as a journalist, you choose to spin and corrupt the news, rather than report the plain truth and let the people judge for themselves. I only know that you have violated the public trust in the most vile and seditious manner, and thus your homes, offices, studios, vehicles, and any other place you may find yourself are part of the battlefield, and as a soldier, I shall act accordingly. I do not care why you signed that union card. I only know that you pay dues to a communist organization which conducts treasonous works against my republic daily. And so your union hall and your work site are part of the battlefield. And as a soldier, I shall act accordingly. I do not care that you only voted for the traitor because you are elderly, disabled, or otherwise dependent upon government largesse. Are you so ignorant and or disinterested that you could not see through their propaganda? To the fact that your sustenance was assured either way? What have you gained now that the public housing area you live in and the public facilities you depend on are part of the battlefield? Though I am a soldier, I can afford you little protection, for you have placed yourself on the battlefield. I know that all of these places and all of these people are part of the battlefield, not just because I'm a soldier and have experienced a few battlefields in my day, but because our president declares that even our homes are on the battlefield, whether we wish them to be or not. And I have no choice but to believe him. I stand here ready on the eve of battle, and I ask God why I have been brought to the threshold of this battle, about to be thrust in, when I thought my soldiering days were through. And I am reminded that there is, by his decree, a time to kill, as well as a time to die. Who am I to question why?
7 days a week.
Fox News Radio, I'm Dave Anthony. Americans who paid the ultimate price being honored this Memorial Day. At ceremonies across America, like this one in Washington, Fox News Radio's Jared Halpern is live.